what's going to drive our success. So as we get started, I talked about this the last couple of years. And the first thing is about each of us and our personal commitment to believing in what we're going to do as an organization, believing in what your role is, and your personal commitment to make sure that you're going to do that. You know, I've had a lot of people ask me, as every year around this time, we go through some changes in the typical Japanese organizational structure. And as we mentioned, Kaz going back, Miyoshi-san coming on, international division, a lot of things going on. A lot of people have asked me, Mike, well, what's your status? What are you doing? You know, you've been in this role for a couple of years, what's your status? Well, I can tell you, and I shared this with the leadership team. Right before Kaz left, him and I had a very long discussion about where we are as an organization and where we want to go. Some very frank and candid conversations. We talked about a lot of things that I candidly felt needed to be done. And I felt confident at the end of that conversation, multiple conversations with him, that we are set and poised for success going forward. So I'm here to tell you my personal commitment is I signed up for 4 more years to be with the organization here. I've signed up to make sure that we, as a group in transportation, can live out this dream and move us back to sustainable profitability. That's my commitment to you as I sit up here today, and I ask each of you to think about what your commitment is to the organization going forward. And we have to stay focused. We cannot think about being everything to everybody. We cannot think about working on a million different projects. We've got to control what we do from our corporate office out to the field to make sure that we can keep our sales organization in front of our clients and we can make sure that we keep our branches operating effectively. So I've challenged our teams to ensure that communication around that focus area, making sure that we stay in the fairway, is absolutely critical to our success. We've talked a lot about teamwork and collaboration. I get it. There's going to be times where sales and branches, you don't agree. That's okay. I go back to my comment yesterday about healthy competition. Healthy competition, healthy discussion. I want people to challenge each other. Challenge the status quo, challenge what's happening in the branch, challenge what's happening with sales in front of a client, make them get better and ask the right questions. But if we don't work together as a team and we don't collaborate, we won't get there. And finally, accountability. Accountability starts with our individual self, waking up in the morning, getting out of bed, looking ourselves in the mirror, getting ready to go to work, and when we come home at night, brushing your teeth, looking yourself back in the mirror and saying, I had a great day today. I added value to the organization. I added value and I learned something new today. That's the challenge that we've got around personal accountability. And I talk about culture. You know, we talk about our YLAT framework, starting with our customer promise. Our customer success drives everything we do. And we talk about our 4 pillars of success, starting with customer satisfaction, operational excellence, product excellence, and personnel excellence. As I've shared before, we've worked on this framework, we've talked about this framework. Now is the time where we have to live this framework. It's not about, can I recite the 4 pillars? It's about, do I understand what it truly takes to live these components? And when you look at each one of them, I just want to remind you, and I want to show you this very quickly. It's about customer satisfaction. It's all about the use and experience. It's about what do customers say when they get up in the morning, when they get in the office, and they think about who's handling the logistical needs. They should be able to close their eyes, put their feet up on their desk, and say, Houston's got it under control. It's that peace of mind. It's the ability to say, that company is easy to do business with. We own that, and we've got to make sure that when customers tell us that, we acknowledge it, but we never stay complacent. Talking about innovation yesterday in the alchemy model. We always got to test, measure, learn, and move forward because our competition is as well. You move into product excellence. Our product teams have to continue to work on delivering the best value for our clients. It's not delivering the cheapest cost all the time. I get it. Price is important. Competitive market. Asset-based players taking prices down. We have got to work through this. We have got to think about how do we get better and better in our product offerings, and how are we the best in the core ISO intermodal product, truck brokerage, and how do we continue to differentiate ourselves in specialized services. As you look at operational excellence, doing it right the first time, every time. You know, my poor kids, my twins get a sheet of homework every week. They get 3 or 4 pages, kindergartners, and they got to do these 3 or 4 pages. You know, they get all sloppy, and I got to come back and say, erase all this stuff and do it again. Well, now, every time they sit down, I ask them, what's the deal, boys? Do it right the first time, Dad. I don't have to do it again. There you go. Operational excellence. That's what it's about. Being proactive in your communication. Being honest with your customers. If we're late on a delivery, we're talking to a customer with an action plan. We're not sitting back waiting to get the message from our sales team or from our customer. We cannot have a box sitting in a rail terminal for 2 or 3 days and not know about it. We can't go home at night not feeling comfortable that we know that every load on our truck board was picked up. Every rail box was ingated. We're managing our pools, managing our res. Operational excellence. We have got to know every single day where our client's freight is and what's happening next. And finally, personnel excellence. This is what it's all about. We've got to have the right people in the right jobs. We have made some hard decisions as an organization, and my hat goes off to the leaders sitting out in this room who have made some of those very difficult decisions with some tenured employees in this organization because they were not in the right role. Doesn't mean they're bad people. It doesn't mean that they're not competent. We got to find the right role to maximize their productivity and output. And this right here is what's critical to our success. So I ask you, this culture is what will differentiate us in the marketplace. It's driven by our 3 I's, it's driven by our 4 pillars, and it ultimately comes back to our customer promise. So as we go into our key initiatives for FY14, these should look very familiar from FY13. And as a leadership team, we feel very confident that when you look at the way we break out these different components, KI1, focus on revenue, primarily owned by our sales organization.
Excuse me, Mr. Mayor.
Yes, sir?
I represent key initiative number 1, top line revenue. What could possibly be more important than top line revenue? Clearly, that's why I'm called key initiative number 1, right?
Sir, that's very intuitive.
Top line revenue.
I love it.
I think so.
Look here, bro, okay? Revenue is vanity, all right? If you get $1 million in revenue and you made $1, you still only made $1. And by the time I collect that dollar, we lost money. K2 drives bottom line results. Gross profit is where it's at, bro.
KI1.
KI2.
KI1.
KI2.
KI1.
Come on.
All
What
right.
do you think?
I'll tell you what I think. I think your last comment around gross profit is an absolutely spot-on statement. And you can't get to gross profit without both of you working together, KI1 and KI2. So as we go forward, these key initiatives, gross profit is what's going to drive our success. And what you're going to find this afternoon or this morning as we go into our breakout sessions, that's where we're going to spend the preponderance of our time really working through the key strategies underneath each one of these key initiatives. You can see these key initiatives very, very high level. What is going to make the difference is the strategies and the execution underneath that will take us from a strategy down into individual accountability, which will result in individual goals and objectives in our PMP process. That's what we should be going through as we leave this conference and we take us through the end of April. I'll also talk about KI3, KI4, and KI5, because without those three, we don't also get to the bottom line. So I like to see this slide because to me, this lays it out perfectly. You've got three buckets, three major levers that you can pull. We can pull the top line revenue, just like John alluded to. But we've got to drive efficiency and cost to get to that gross profit, and we've really got to focus on reducing our divisional expense. But across the bottom is all about that KI4 around process standardization and Kaizen and what's going to drive increased productivity, optimization in each one of our segments to ultimately feed back into these buckets. And at the end of the day, what's holding everything up is our people. And I've said it before, and I'll continue to say it. Without our great people, we are nothing. So it all comes back down to moving back into our goal to get back to sustainable profitability. So what I want to do now is I'm actually going to walk through each one of the KIs and talk about some of the initiatives that we have to really, and the strategies to drive success in each one. So let's start with top line revenue. That is a very critical KI for us with, again, the market share that we have today and our opportunities to touch more clients. So we've got to grow by $46 million in top line revenue. So that may look like a big number to you, but if you do the quick math, 46 million, you start to back that out. You got 30 sales professionals in the organization, not counting everything else we do with our ICs, our branches internally, what we're doing in our major accounts across the board. You take 30, you divide that by the number of working days in a calendar year, and you know what you come to and what we need from each one of our sales professionals? 3.5 incremental loads per day per person. I don't think that's insurmountable. And yes, we're in day 2, so you lost 7 loads between yesterday and today. But don't worry about it. Once you start hitting those singles, doubles, triples, and home runs, those home runs will pick up some more. But the bottom line is, every day we wait, the hole gets deeper and deeper. And we cannot come into this fiscal year and allow the hole to get deeper. So what do we need to do? We talked about Matt Godholz, new customers he added last year. We need that from everybody in the organization. When you get your sales budget and there's that new business line that says, I need X revenue from you. Hell, I don't know where it's going to come from. You don't know where it's going to come from today. But I know March 31st of next year, you're going to have the list of your accounts and you're going to know where you got it from. So we have got to be out there, pounding the pavement, getting into those new customers. Nick Tishy's leads comes to the field. We've got to be taking them and running with them. We've got to expand our share of wallet. If you look at our market share in each one of our customers today, and you look at the number of customers that drive our portfolio, from an outsider, it's a little scary. Outsider, it's a little scary, because we have about 50 accounts that drive almost 70% of our revenue. We need to diversify, and we need to expand within each one of those clients. The good news is that the tail is a large number of accounts, but very small revenue and gross profit. So we already have the relationship, we've already proven ourselves, or we wouldn't be moving the freight. We have now got to take that and expand that. We've got to continue to wrap our arms around the accounts that we have, and we've got to stop the bleeding from losing accounts out the backside. We should never lose an account because of operational excellence. Never. We control our own destiny from that perspective, and we cannot let it happen. I get it. We go to a bid. It gets competitive. But we are going to do everything in our power to maintain that account so we keep our foothold in, even if we make the strategic decision to drop our gross margin. But we have got to pull on every one of these levers. I talked about specialized services, and I talked about the success they had. Our focus this year is to figure out how to get dedicated sales so that we can enjoy not only organic growth, but new business because we've got something on the street. The challenge there is that the cycle for a sale is elongated, very similar to a CHB or an OCN sales cycle. But we've got to get the ball moving in that direction. I don't think anybody can argue about the next bullet around improving our win ratio with pricing. You know, we've gone through some changes in our pricing, and we're in the process of making an offer to a senior pricing analyst to join our pricing team. And I feel good that that's probably going to happen and be announced here over the next couple of days. But with Peter and his team, we have really got to improve this process. But it just doesn't take the corporate pricing team. We've got to look at how do we optimize what we're doing in the field. Where are we doing our pricing today? How can we streamline regionally what we're doing with pricing so we have a standard process, so we know what we're doing, we know where we can get our pricing levers, we know where there's equipment. But it's going to take a collective effort. We've got to do better during our bid process to work with our cost side to go out to our dray carriers and get committed capacity, committed rates. We've got to go out to our trucking partners. We've got to go out to the steamship lines. And we've got to think creatively to build in a more solidified and competitive cost structure versus having to make assumptions. We've got to look at benchmark and history to truly understand what is the res charges in reality. Not we think we have to put 6 days, or we think we have to put 7 days. We need to be willing to take the risk based on historical data that says if it's 5 days, put $100 in there. Every $20 of res days makes us non-competitive in this category. But it's going to take a collaborative approach. We need the sales team leading it, we need the executive team, we need the product team, we need the cost structure, and we need the branches involved. As we get into these strategic bids, we can win incremental $5 million, $10 million in some of these bids if we take this seriously. This is a critical component for us in FY14. We also need to be able to stay state-of-the-art with what's happening in the industry, what's happening in the round market today, and specifically focusing on our fusion opportunities. I talked a lot about this yesterday afternoon, the teamwork, collaboration, reaching out to the people in this room. Get out in front of the customers that have been long-time customers with OCM, CHB, OFF, AFF, NYK Line. Be out there. If you put our portfolios side by side, the overlap, you would barely see the crossover in the Venn diagram. There's not a lot of accounts that we cross over, but there's a tremendous list of accounts for us to penetrate. We've got to take advantage of it. I look at our cross-border operation, and this includes not only Canada and the Mexico side, it's both put together. But we've got a lot of focus, and we feel very strongly that there's a significant opportunity in this cross-border operation. That's why this afternoon, during the breakout session, I'd ask you to really spend a lot of time with our Mexico team, and we've got to be able to streamline our communication and not worry about, am I going to get credit in my branch? Who's getting this split? Who cares, guys? It's about driving bottom line dollars for the organization. We've got to work together collaboratively to do the right thing. You look at the growth ratio in the Eastern Rail Network. You look at the number of terminals that Norfolk Southern opened last year, and you look at the terminals that CSX opened and the things they're doing this year. That is the fastest growing segment when you look at all the analyst reports for our competition, is the local East network. We have really got to focus on understanding the strengths of those terminals, We've got to build our dray capacity around that, and we've got to focus on modal conversion in FY14 to get there to achieve our goals. When I look at our truck brokerage model, we've got some differentiators out there that we are clearly not taking advantage at this point. And when I look at our short-haul regional capability and our high-density shuttle, Doug Granger and his team have really worked on procuring dedicated capacity at extremely, extremely aggressive rates. $100, $150 to run intra-city from a manufacturing facility to a distribution center. We need to understand where that is, and we need to be asking those questions to our customers. That business is out there. We need to go get it, and we need to understand the other markets that we need to sell into. And finally, ISO capacity. Neil Ward sits in here and have the conversation with him and others in the steamship business. It's a tough business. We think it's tough on our side. Hell, it's tough. But we have created some relationships, and we've created deeper relationships to get access to capacity and committed capacity in some areas that should generate new revenue opportunities. And that challenge goes out to Peggy and her team to make sure that we're quantifying that, we're getting it in your hands, and we're getting in front of clients to ensure that we can sell it. Absolutely critical for us as we move forward in FY14. And finally, operational excellence. You might ask, why is operational excellence in KI1? That doesn't make sense. Well, I will tell you, ladies and gentlemen, with the market that we're in today, with capacity the way it is, and what's transpired over the last 3 months, there's a very large indication that there's a lot more carriers going out of business than expected. They can't handle the maintenance costs. Trucks went down during the weather that they just can't recover from. That is a prime opportunity for us. But we've got to be out there. We've got to be working the spot boards. We have got to take calculated risk. We cannot be afraid to price business aggressively. So truck mode managers in this room, branch managers in this room, it is your challenge to ensure that we improve our transactional acceptance of freight in FY14 and we deliver bottom line profitability. IT perspective, intermodal spot pricing tool. It is pretty slick. That's going to be rolled out to the branches, and you should start being able to see the ability, what's out there from capacity today. Where can I go get aggressive with my customers because of this pricing mechanism that some of our partners put in place? We have got to continue to understand the tools at our disposal, and we've got to make sure we drive success. Our speed to market has got to get better. There's some corporate functions listed in here. IT, credit, legal, claims. I talked yesterday about how important those groups are to us. We have got to continue to work collaboratively with the legal team. We have got to do our part to set them up for success so Tom and Karen can look at understanding what is our risk in this business relationship. And I will tell you, they are committed to reducing the red lines in our contracts. They're committed to speaking directly with clients where needed, and we are going to continue to get better and better in this area. But I will tell you this, we own the process. We own it. Our crisis to fail to prepare is not their issue. So when we come to credit at the 19th hour, don't get pissed at Alvin Hall and John Vitolo. Look at ourselves and figure out how do we get better the next time we need to ask for credit. So collectively, we've got to do a good job. But I can tell you, when we build our credibility with them and we do our part, the rubber band stretches a little further and a little further. And I can tell you, John Vitolo has made some decisions for us in the last 60 days that we would have never had before. But we've got to follow through and make sure that we collect. And finally, we have got to get better at understanding the service we're delivering to our customers, not waiting for the scorecard to come from our customers to us. We have got to work on our benchmarking around service. That is a critical initiative for us in FY14. Moving into KI2. You've seen a lot of this. We've worked on a lot of this. But it's not going to go away because we've got to continue to squeeze every res dollar out of the system. As I said before, every $20 that we can save is getting us much closer to the competitive landscape. Expired and canceled charges. We've got to make a calculated decision if we are going to keep a box out and we're going to let a reservation expire because we know that we made that decision. Not because we forgot and it was 5 o'clock in the afternoon and it was time to go home. We have got to continue to be aggressive and make our employees understand the importance of driving this incremental $300,000 of savings in FY14. We have got to get our arms wrapped around accessorials. We cannot write off accessorials because we did not proactively communicate to our customers. We've got to document it in writing, we've got to get the approval, and we've got to bill it timely. And then we've got to follow through to make sure that the right invoice gets cut and we collect our money. This Drake Reload project, we started in Chicago, and we spent a lot of time analyzing our inbound, outbound flows, taking the Chicago market, which is a very large market, as you know, and looking at it in quadrants. What carriers are moving in and out? Where can we work with core carriers that understand the value of giving us one-way pricing? Are they measuring their empty miles? If they're not measuring their empty miles, something is wrong. Because I can tell you what, JB Hunt, Hub, Pacer, they're all making significant progress in each one of those areas. So we've got to drive this incremental $1 million out of our Drake network in FY14. Our purchasing. You know, I mentioned yesterday, David Edwards and that group. They do a phenomenal job negotiating when we look at larger opportunities. But the field has every day the opportunity, as you see spot moves and you see the ability to get a container from a dray carrier. We should not easily accept that round trip rate when we know damn well that they generated revenue going out and they're going to turn the box. Same if we turn the boxes to one of our competitors because we can't load it, we should expect to get cost savings. But we treat our carriers with respect. Because when we need them, we want them to remember us. But let me tell you, the Drake community, as tough as they make it sound, they're doing okay. They're making money. And we have just got to get better and better in improving that. From an LTL perspective, we've got to leverage the successes that we've had with our purchasing in specialized services. And when we do that, we're going to see incremental savings. Our challenges goes out to Seattle and Springfield, our primary branches in LTL, to be subject matter experts and work with the procurement team to drive success. And I mentioned before about our OTR purchasing. We've got to continue to get committed capacity to drive success, and we've got to take care of that transactional business. Internet truck stop should help us to get some of those small to mid-sized carriers, and I'm confident that that's going to help us differentiate ourselves. We've started to do some quarterly reviews on our strategic accounts. This should be an ongoing process with our teams. We've got to drive this with involvement from everybody to understand where our low gross margin accounts are and how do we drive that profit up. And I give you an example here, because we think in this market, how can we go to a customer and ask for a price increase? Well, let me tell you, our competition's doing it, and we should be confident to stand in front of our customer and look them in the eye with a fact-based discussion and take price up. That intestinal fortitude from our sales organization is what we need, and the rest of the organization needs to deliver fact-based, market-based discussions that should help you get in front of the client and do that. And when I look at the sales team we have today, there's no doubt in my mind that we have that capability to do that. Moving into KI3. This is an area where we have got to focus on controllable expenses. So what's our controllable expenses? Headcount, overtime, T&E, supply and services. That right there is the categories that we can control. So as we make personnel decisions and we decide we're going to keep people for overtime, you as your leaders in this room have got to decide, I'm going to get the ROI on that overtime. I'm not telling you to cut out overtime. I'm telling you to think smartly. And you've got to run this like it's your own business, whether you're a sales professional and you're out deciding, do I need that last drink with this client? Do I need to go to this lunch or dinner, or can I be in the office? Do I need to travel, or can I get on a WebEx? It doesn't replace the personal touch. It asks you just to be fiscally responsible. And that's what's critical in this perspective. Project re-engineering, you've heard a lot about that. Our goal this year is to drive an incremental 5% in our division overhead from where we're going to finish up next year. This year, excuse me. 5%. We blew the number away last year. It was one of our most successful metrics we had. We've got to do the same thing again this year. Moving into KI4, process standardization and Kaizen. We'll talk this morning about Mercury, our TMS 2.0. I will tell you that is the most critical project we have for this entire year. This will drive the future of our operating practice, and over the next 18 months we're going to be working on this, and this is going to take us at least the next 5 years out in the future. We've got to take advantage of ClickView. You're starting to see some of these dashboards. You're starting to see some of the capabilities to get real-time information so you can make a decision proactively versus reactively. We've got to continue to drive that forward. And I'm pleased to announce that we just made an offer and it was accepted to a business process manager that will be housed in Kioski's group, reporting directly to him. This individual, when he joins the organization in a couple of weeks, will have an absolutely critical job to help us achieve success across the branch network to make sure we're operating with the best practices. Our productivity study is going to drive success, and we're going to continue to get more efficient, which will drive incremental profit because we can take more business on. And last but not least, KI5, personnel development. We're going to start something different this year from a recruitment standpoint, and Kelly will talk a little more about this. But we have got to do a better job to get out to our local colleges and community services in our respective areas. We've got to create relationships with those people. And we've got to find the best talent that is coming out of that. And we're going to do a test here in Jacksonville with 4 interns over the next 4 months. And we're going to test it, but we're confident it's going to drive success. We are committed to training and the events that we need to drive your success. We did spend time here at the annual conference talking about product summits. We're going to continue that into the next year. Regional sales meetings to drive more training, discipline into our process, success stories and learning how we can scale that. And of course, we'll continue our improvement in Kaizen training to drive that culture we need. This year we're also going to have some leadership development programs. We've started with 3. We have 3 individuals right now. Brian Palillo, Kristen Nussbaum, and Jason Abramowitz in a senior developmental training program. This process started back in December. They've been going through training. They'll be up in Secaucus next week. Our goal is to now cascade this training so we can help you get better in doing certain things within performance management. And Kelly will talk a little more about that this afternoon as well. I set up last year, and I talked to you, one of my personal goals was around retention and reducing our turnover in the organization. Well, I can tell you, in FY14, we significantly reduced our voluntary turnover in the transportation group. We have now transferred our retention to us making the decision and giving every employee the opportunity to improve. And if he or she can't improve, then we have to decide to part ways. So our retention and our recruitment is driven more about us driving the process versus people leaving the organization. We have got to continue to recognize our people. I'm proud to sit up here and tell you that the transportation group was the highest user of the GEM Award program. The GEM Award is going the extra mile and is your opportunity as leaders in the field to take a spot situation that drove value and recognize that individual, give them a small monetary return, but most importantly, recognition in front of our people. I think it's clear in our model today, there's a lot of competition that's out there that has a different compensation model for our truck brokerage specifically. We are in the process of really looking about how does that compare? How do we benchmark against that? And how do we drive different behaviors and motivation potentially around a compensation review? That will be a critical task for us as a leadership team as we go into FY14. So, as we bring our key initiatives together, this is what we signed up for in a budget. $455 million at the top line. That's where our growth needs to come from. If you look at the KIs, it's got to drive the success in each one of these levers. So I'm sure you're all focused on the bottom line. It's red. Negative $1.5 billion is our budget this year. It's the next step to get us from 3.8 million to negative 1.5, to getting back to break even, to getting to profitability. This is the journey we're on. We have got to commit that we are going to achieve and exceed this budget. And if you go back to the slide that had the buckets, if you notice the strategic objective for FY14 set an FY14 break-even budget. My challenge to this group out here is let's not get to $1.5 million loss. Let's figure out a way to get back to break even in FY14. And if we do that, we will be well down the path of success on our journey back to sustainable profitability. And I throw this last slide up because in the core, in the center, is why we exist. It's about profitability. No matter how you cut it, our ultimate scorecard is about that center box. But if we don't do all the things around this box, governance, compliance, our growth strategies, we've got to build volume in the organization. Our culture drives our success, and it's about quality and efficiency. Once you get to that point where we become sustainable, you get back to profit. But just like it says in that bottom corner, it's the commitment to getting back to achieving our budget. So as we close out here now, hopefully that gives you a perspective of where, from my seat, sharing with Ryoshi-san back to Tokyo, this is what I've shared as where each of us and our other 200 employees are going to focus our efforts. As I started out by saying, we can't be everything